Well, hello everyone. My name is Martha Novak. I'm sorry for the buzz that you hear. We've had a lot of rain here, and when we have a lot of rain, we're having a beautiful day today, but when we have a lot of rain, our line gets wet up here in our little remote area of the world, and sure enough, we have a little buzz on the line, which you hear today. We're going to try to transcend it. How's that? Guys, this is Real Talk with Martha Burgess. Martha Burgess Novak, actually. Martha Burgess Novak. And now I go by Martha Novak. And we're awfully glad that you are with us today. We're ending our series on creating the life you want. I say we're ending our series. We may morph into another subject that has very much to do with this, and we may not finish that today. I don't ever know how much we will get done, but it's very nice to have you with us today, and thank you so much for listening in. And I have a puppy, come on, who wants to sit in my chair. That's what we do. We almost didn't get on the air today. I don't know what happened, but God bless my sweet husband who knows how to work technology. It was real funny. We had some neighbors in last night, and the neighbors, we were getting to know one another, and they asked what I did, and I mentioned the radio show, and they said, how in the world do you broadcast anything from here? Because they always were having trouble with the internet too. All right, guys, we are going to launch into our thing. Let's just do a prayer, get us all on the same page. As I said 12 seconds ago, we didn't even know that we were going to be on the air today because it looked like we weren't going to get there. Yes, Charlie? Of the telephone, is that what the problem is? He's saying take the sound down of the telephone. Does that help? That's enough? Okay. My hero. He is always telling me how to do things to make it a little better. So he was saying if I took the sound down on the telephone, the buzz might go away. Well, it's not gone away, but certainly it's better. Let's do a prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much for all of us being together today, and we're all under the banner of wanting to know ourselves better, knowing you better, because you are all we are. We get in the way sometimes of that. We think that we're doing it. That's what the ego child's mind tells us. There is no us that is doing it. And often the ego child's mind gets in the way of this glorious thing that we are, which is the aspect of you, dear God. We're here today to see how we're in our way and see what we strengthen in us to go on and create dynamic lives for ourselves, happy lives for ourselves. Everyone in the world wants that. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this. We now say we know nothing. It is the you, through us and through all things, that knows it all. We open to that today, and we say thank you for everything, even if we're not in the place in our lives we want to be. We realize we have created this, and we can create something else. So we stand in that kind of energy, which is all you. And we say, dear, help us, dear God, by opening us to what you would have us know today beyond what we think we know. And so it is. Amen. So, dear ones, we're going to talk about all sorts of things today. We're going to talk about what we must know to live well. Now, one of the things, and we're also going to talk about, and this is the part I hope we can get to, how people sabotage themselves, how people undermine their own happiness. Now, we may or may not be able to get to that today, but I think we will get some of it anyway. it's there's certain things that as we open to more in our lives, as we wake up in our awareness to what we've been doing to block ourselves, it becomes all of a sudden very clear that there are no thwarts other than us. We're the thwart. It's our limited thinking. And guys, don't criticize that, because that's what you got from your childhood. It created an energy, you see? That energy changes to something else in the higher energies of you. I've said this before, but I want to put it on the table. We live in stratas of energy, and certain things only exist on these stratas of energy, right? Pushing, striving, grasping is on a pretty shallow level of our energy. All of that is based on our thinking that we are not going to get what we want, for example. The deeper one goes, and you live in these stratas, that's why as you open consciousness, you go deeper and deeper, deeper, until there really is a peace beyond all understanding. You realize that you're not responsible for how you get things. You are responsible for wanting those and being open to it and keeping positive about it and recognizing the opportunities or the leads when they come across your desk, you see? So there are just some things we wake up to and we realize, wait a minute, I've been doing that. That's really God's responsibility. This is mine. And you stay within your arena and you do it well and you enjoy your life, because part of what gets in the way if you're creating the life you want is your lack of faith. And your lack of faith often, if you're doing this work, comes out as, I have to constantly remind God or myself or whatever of what I want. That's not true. You don't have to think about it ad nauseum. You just don't. You simply have to say, this is what you want. Have the universe hear you as it does, because the universe that I'm talking about is you. See, you're the only thing that can get this. My God can't get it for you. The nature's God can't get it for you. The church's God can't get it for you. Nobody's God can get it for you but yours. That's the one you use. That's the one you work with. That's the one you align with. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean by you align your thinking. You align your feeling. You align your very being with that higher energy. I talk about the stratas. The irony is you go down deep into your consciousness, and the deeper you go in consciousness, the higher your vibration is. I know that sounds confusing, and it sounds contradictory. It isn't. The deeper you go, the higher your vibration is. The deeper you go within you. Well, what does that mean to somebody who irritates you on the outside? It means you had better look at yourself, you see. What's irritating you about that? It isn't them. It's something from your past. Guys, there's nothing to bother you except the past. There's nothing to bother you except the past and how you are in present based on the past. So if you find this person absolutely annoying, you might want to look at your past, who was annoying then, and what you are carrying of that energy within you now that makes you very similar. It's honestly, all of this healing and growing and getting on with things is relatively easy. Aligning our energy with the ascended God you're also the ego child's mind God. You're both. See, everything's God. That's what's confusing us. Everything's God. Everything's just high and low versions of itself. according to your understanding. According to your understanding, according to the individual's understanding. When we're watching the news, what mind are we in? You see? That's going to be what we see. But it's in all of us, because these are all perceptions from our childhood. We form these perceptions based on appearances. So how true are they in the scheme of truth? They're just one little aspect. So it behooves us now to open our minds and see things as they really are. See from a more global perspective, which is the higher mind. So when you're trying to create happiness and trying to create things in substance for yourself, you have to realize that God does not meet the ego child's mind. It does not come down and grant the ego child's mind's wishes. Oh, that's Santa Claus, and Santa Claus is a fantasy. And sometimes I've met people, men and women, who want a partner like that. Guys, no. You are responsible for your own life. So what does that mean if God's not going to come down and grant your wishes like Santa Claus? Or a partner's not going to come along and save you from your life? What does it mean to you? It means that you must wake up. You must change your perceptions inside your mind, right? You must go deeper and deeper and deeper until you know that you're aligning with the higher energies. Now, here's the thing. We've got all this misunderstanding. I don't want to give myself to God because he do note that, may take me in a direction I don't want to go. Okay, that's your early church teaching, guys. It can't happen because you were put on this earth with certain attitudes, tendencies, predilections, talents, gifts, abilities, all of which you're about to use in that higher experience of mind. All of which you'll use. You see, you only partially use them in the ego child's mind. We push, we try to be better than everybody else. We try to write the greatest screenplay in the... It's not about that. It's about you. Where are you going inside you? What are you going to access inside you that you can use in the world to add value here? Isn't that something? When you add value to the world, the interesting thing, hi, Peter, I'm so glad you're with us today. When you add value, when you find that place where you want to contribute, guys, you can't help but contribute to your own life because that's where it starts, see? That's where it starts. Oh, thank you so much, guys. I'm so glad. Oh, I see all my friends here today. Thank you so much for joining us. I see your little pictures up there. Hello. So, that said, what we're talking about right now, we've gone through several things, haven't we? We've gone through, certainly, the first thing I told you all when we started this series was, what's the formula for creating the life you want? And it works every time. The formula is, I'll say it again, desire what you want. And you may say, oh, we're all very dramatic, right? I don't know what I want, but indeed you do. You do know what you want. You know the elements of what you want. You just don't know the name of what you want, okay? That's all that's going on here. Do you want a job that doesn't pay you enough? No, of course you want a job that pays you well. Do you want to work with people that don't appreciate you? No, you want to work with people that do appreciate you and appreciate you a lot. Do you want to work with a boring team? No, you want to work with a creative team that will inspire you to use your own creativity. You know the elements. You just might not know the name, dear hearts. So we always know what we desire. So back to the formula. Desire plus knowingness that lives in expectancy. Now, I've spent a lot of time on that, which I will continue to spend, because this is the major weak point. We don't know we've asked for it, and it's so. We've got to strengthen our faith. Now, where does real faith lie? In the deeper parts of you, not on the strata of trying so hard and not believing in yourself and needing to connect and being afraid. No, it lies in a deeper part of you where you know everything is perfect. Here's the thing, though. This can't be fantasy. You can't fake it till you make it. It's not going to work. Here, it doesn't work. You know, there are many, many lovely philosophies out there. I have gone to all the churches. I feel like I'm all denomination because I really enjoy being in every church. But I do sit there and go, I believe that, don't believe that, believe that, don't believe that. Sorry, that's just the way it is, you know, because every church and religions, by their nature, are dogma, and they have their limitations as dogma, okay? Now, I appreciate them all. Really, I do. One of the things that I enjoyed going to, too, when I lived in a city that had this church, was the science of mind. This is not Scientology. People that don't know hear science, and they go, woo, you know. No, this is not Scientology. Science of mind is quite a lovely thing that espouses some of the same things we're talking here, right? What they don't tell you, though, and the reason there's a lot of attrition in that church and in other experiences where they're talking about how to create the life you want, is that you've got to work on yourself to do it well. They forgot that part. They just say, change your mind, change your life. That's true. Is it that easy? You tell me. Of course not. If you are going to be the master of your mind, you have to work on yourself enough to get past these old issues, these old limitations that are there for a reason, because they're the energy of the other. You see, they're the energy of the other. If you didn't have these issues, they couldn't change into something. Everything starts in energy before it changes to something else. So your feelings of low self-esteem and not deserving, and I'm always wrong and I never do anything right, all those feelings, when you start working on yourself, lighten up and then literally change into a piece of who you are, and a piece of everything you've been and what you've done, and the joy and the privilege of using that in the world to make yours and other people's lives better. It's all that energy. If you didn't have one, you wouldn't have the other. Don't you see? Of course you do. Of course you do. It's all one energy. But it's in low and high degrees according to our understanding and our perception. Wow. So you've got everything it takes. Not one of us was standing behind the door when God gave this out. Every single person has that incredible potential in them, and it's all different. Part of why it's all different is because of your past. Not in spite of it, because of your past. Because you're going to offer the world something that is uniquely you, because of all your genetics and all your inherited ideas and the energy that you bring into life. Here's the thing, though. You have to be a participant in life, and most people are waiting. This came up in my practice a lot this week. This seems to be the week that we confront waiting. Have you ever given it a thought? Let's talk about it now, because I think it has everything to do with you creating things. Guys, there is a passive waiting, and there is an active waiting. Passive waiting is you just sitting by, not doing anything, and waiting for life to happen to you. Waiting for your dreams to come true. waiting for those fantasies to come true, and they never will, because fantasy is its own reward. You've heard me say that. Active waiting. Let's talk about that. Before we discuss active waiting, I want to tell you a quick story. You know, my background is theater, right? Theater and film. That's where I grew up. That's what I did. And I've often enjoyed very much the story of actors, and I occasionally will talk about those. And here's one of them. Michael Caine, that wonderful British actor, had a great story. He said when he was first starting out, he was a walk-on. A walk-on is the same thing as an extra. It's just on the stage, not on the screen. So he was a walk-on the stage. And his job, as I recall, was to stand near the upstage. Upstage means the farthest place away from the audience. And stand there with his champagne glass and pretend he's talking or something, right? And he was doing his job at this rehearsal, and the director called the rehearsal and gave everybody 5 except for him. He said, "Come here." Michael went over there and he said, "What are you doing?" And Michael Caine said, "Well, nothing." And the director said, "Well, why are you doing nothing?" And Michael Caine said, "Because I don't have any lines." And the director said, "You know, you're wrong. You have all the lines in the world. You hear everything. You have an opinion about every single thing that's going on. But just when you decide to say it, you decide not to." Wow. I don't know a better way to explain active waiting. So, let's talk about your lives now. You want to have something. Let's say you're waiting for a new house. Well, are you the victim of anybody who wants to sell that house? Are you the victim of the economy, and maybe you can afford it and maybe you can't? Are you the victim of all of that? Are you going to be thwarted like you do believe you will be, because everybody believes that when they're kids? I would suggest not. Active waiting means you have asked for it. And you occasionally do ask for it, and it's so, and you look forward to it. Here we come to knowing in the energy of expectancy. Every phone call can be something wonderful. Every email can be something wonderful. Everything that comes to you in the mail is probably something wonderful. And if it's not, it's just not time yet, because right action, perfect timing is a great mantra to have when you're creating something. Because you don't know the right action, and you don't know the perfect timing. So if you're in that energy of the ascended God, you'll be told when it's time. Active waiting is looking forward to it all, knowing that something absolutely perfect is out there. Just meeting the criteria, most of the criteria that you want. There will be some that you absolutely have to have, and some that you can add yourself. You see? Active waiting. Active waiting is knowing and expecting lovely things. Now, you've been trained to expect the worst in many cases. That's usually the ego child's mind, isn't it? Because that's where the futility comes from. That's where the loneliness comes from. That's where the depression comes from. And that's where the anxiety comes from. Because you're not using the abilities you were born with to know, to expect, to celebrate every moment that goes by, whether you see it or not, because you know it's all moving in energy. There are always things moving under the surface, dear heart. These are not things to hurt you. There's nothing to hurt you but the past coming around again and again and again in different forms. So what does that tell you? You ought to look at that. So nothing has to come around that's going to hurt you like that. And you might say, "Oh, yes, but life hurts, you know. People come, people die, people go, people..." Yeah, that's life. Are you going to be resilient with it or not? Are you going to know a larger truth or not? Does everything work for your good or not? What do you want to believe? I'm going to put that on the table right now. What do you want to believe? I'm preaching to the choir, though, aren't I? Because I know what all of you all want to believe. You're tuned into a show like this. You wouldn't be interested in a show like this if you didn't want to believe something more. Thank you. I'm here to tell you you'll get something more. But I'm going to ask you to consider passive and active waiting. You see, passive waiting is something that the child does. Just like you did when you were a kid. We passively wait. We don't have the power. You have nothing but power, kids. That's why I want you to actively pursue what you want. Actively be a participant in this life. You can't sit back. You see, the base of this is, are you a participant in your life or not? And what mind are you coming from? The ego child's mind or the highest self mind? Now, don't you be beating yourself up if you can't do this list that I'm going to give you. Because this list of things you know to live well. By the way, all this is coming from this book that I wrote, The Likely One. This list really comes the more you spiritually surrender. There are 3 subjects in this book I wrote. The first subject is who God is. What is it, this God? And I put forth a lot of information about energy because, as I said in other shows, it's recorded in the Bible that God says, I am that I am. Not I am who I am that I am. It's energy. God is energy. You're the who part of it. And all those hopes and dreams and all those things that you say, I want, and then you say, I can't have that, so I need to budget, I need to limit myself, I need to really, get smaller, get narrower. No, all those wants are God too, saying, use your creativity, make more money, enjoy more things, go get them. It's all part of a major spiritual system. And it all supports that wonderful word called potential. We all have different potentials, but every single potential is in the higher self mind and not in the ego child's mind. Okay. You simply must develop and use what has been given. An interesting thing, and I'm going to put this on the table to you, is wherever you are right now, you don't know what's been given yet. And I don't mean that to be insulting. I'm saying the more you open the deeper parts of you, the more talents you're going to see you have. Talents that you never even expected, especially intuition. So it's pretty exciting when all that happens. All of a sudden you find, oh my gosh, I can do things I never thought I could do before. You'll also, the deeper you go, learn to make very good decisions for your life, because many people just haven't learned to be practical and good decision makers. It's one of the downfalls of fantasy. And almost every child, and this isn't in the domain of gender, men and women both do this. They fantasize to make themselves feel better. They have, and they call it hope. Okay, see, there is a hope that is from the ego child's mind that's based in fantasy. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to hope I make some more money. I'm going to dream of making more money. Okay, but it can't happen because it's fantasy, and fantasy is its own reward. It's only there to make you feel better. It's what we did when we were kids. We've got to free our minds from that, and here's the problem. We like fantasy. We like it. Not only does it make us feel good, not only does it help us put one foot in front of the other the next day, right? But it also hits the opiate centers of the brain. It's our drug. Okay? I got to separate you from that. You've got to separate yourself from that because I don't live with you. I can't remind you, whoops, you're fantasizing. Nope. You got to catch yourself in that. And you've got to bring yourself back to reality, and you have to make your peace with reality. You see, the kid learns to fantasize because reality isn't so hot. And when you're a real little kid, before 18 months old, all time is now. That means that anything you had a feeling about, anything that hurt you, you think is going to last forever. You bet that by the time the ego child's mind comes along around 18 months old, about the time the ego starts, we are creating other worlds, other fantasies. We're creating a fantasy father, a fantasy mother, a fantasy us, a fantasy family, a fantasy God, a fantasy world. We've got to learn that reality is just fine. And to do that, guys, you've got to learn to negotiate in this world, to make your way in the world as an adult who knows how to deal with the problems that adults deal with. That's one of the reasons we have coaches, guys, because most of us did not learn that when we were kids. And you've got to learn now that you can handle anything. What point is, what's the use of having the ego child's mind if you can handle everything as the adult and reality is just fine? Huh? That tends to totally diminish. The ego will always be there. That's a real important part of the whole process. But the ego child's mind, the guy that's, the 6-year-old that's driving the bus, that should not be. That 6-year-old should be in back of the bus. And you should be taking the keys away from him as the adult and driving that bus yourself. And that's what we're going to talk about. Okay. Let's go through these things. God is everything and God is all you are. That is not what we were taught. I know I was taught that God is an outside God. I very rarely heard, and if I heard anything at all, and I was reared a Presbyterian, doesn't matter because it's in every religion, that there's a spark of God in all of us, a spark. Now, I'm here to tell you there's not a spark of God in you. I'm telling you, God is all you are, in high or low aspects of itself according to your understanding. There's God. God is energy. You're in the powerful aspects of God, the ascended God mindset. Or you're still the ego child's mind that sees God as the absence of God, the absence of itself, lack. The ascended mind is the fullness of God. You understand? So we've got to change our minds, God is all you are. Why don't you know that? I'll tell you, because your issues are in the way. We all have been afraid in our lives. We're all trying to control everything instead of relying on that aspect of our being that knows everything even before we know everything. I can't tell you how many times in my life that God has protected me, and it doesn't go through the thinking processes. When God speaks to you, you act. You don't have to stand. I'm a big thinker, all right? You tell me if a fire breaks out in the corner, generally speaking, what I would do is go, oh my God, there's a fire that broke out in the corner. Second thought would be, oh my God, there's a fire. What do I do? And somewhere down the line, I would think of where there's something to put water in and go try to get it out. My thinking process is very strong, but it's slow because it's the thinking process. All of our processes are rather slow like that. So I can tell you a couple of stories. One story was when I was young. I was still living in my parents' house, and they had a garage door that was not electric. This was before electric garage doors, and you had to step on the bottom rung and throw a switch, and then you could lift the door up. And I was down there for some reason lifting the door up, and I stepped on it and I threw the switch, and somewhere in that second or two interval, I saw a curled rattlesnake in my mind. It was just as clear. I opened the door, there was a rattlesnake, I shut the door. I couldn't have done it that quickly had God not informed me. God informed me before I actually saw it. Another story. So, when I first moved into the last house I had, I was trying to get a whole lot of things done, all right, move in almost by myself. And as I recall, I was coming down the stairs and my arms, and it was a heavy-duty stair that resulted in a landing. You know, the wall was right there, and then curved around another couple of steps to go into the foyer. Okay. So I was coming down the stairs, as I recall, with a basket of laundry. Something was in my hands, and I wasn't holding on to the rail. I also had on flip-flops. Not good, right? Somehow, I tripped. I was at the top of the stairs, and I rolled down the stairs. You know, God knows what happened to the laundry in the basket. It's somewhere. I was aware as I was rolling down the stairs. I didn't lose my mind. You know, I was aware of, well, that's a strange place for my arm to be. That's a strange place for my foot. That's a strange place for my elbow, you know. I was really aware as I was rolling down. And I heard, at some point, relax. I heard it. Relax. It was an order. And I relaxed. And the top of my head, this part, the crown, hit the drywall. This was about 15 years ago, maybe. And I was pissed off. God, you told me to relax, and I did, and I still hit my head. And the next moment I realized, had my weight not gone down by relaxing, I would have broken my neck. Guys, I'm telling you, you know, and then, by the way, when that happened, and I realized the full extent of that, the big picture, the global picture, that I could have died, I worked on myself so that I wouldn't have that little pissy, "Wah! I did what you said." I didn't want that reaction. I just wanted to do what it said. This is how one works on oneself. You understand? You realize a pissy reaction? Let's get it out. What's your first response to anything that doesn't go well? Is it over? Are you mad? Do you give up? Do you say, well, that just absolutely is evidence that everything I know about life and how hard it is true. Is that what your first response is? Let's work on it. God is everything, and God is all you are. Everything works for your good. If it hurts, get the information out of it and let the energy keep flowing. Guys, don't avoid anything. That's what fantasy does. It helps you avoid. Don't avoid. Look at it. Look at it. You say, but I hurt. And I say, well, who doesn't? You got to learn that being hurt is not going to kill you. It's got information in it that by your avoidance of being hurt is going to free you ultimately. God is everything. The light, the dark, the good, the bad, those are labels you put on things, the rich, the poor, everything. Okay? That's all God. And God is all you are. The ascended vibrations, the egoic child's mind vibrations, the absence of itself, the fullness of itself, according to your understanding. Okay. Second one, consciousness, God, the universe, however you want to call it, is entirely supporting you, and everything is working for your ultimate happiness. Everything works for your good. There's a sign on my refrigerator. I don't know who said it. This is not attributed to anybody, but it says everything's going to be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. That's a good sign. Just keep the energy going. Just you see, the problem comes when you go, whoa, there's evidence that it's all going to hell in a handbasket. There it is. Guys, we cannot continue to live and create in the ego child's mind that only sees what's wrong and the lack of things and the struggle. It's no more important that it shows you what mind you're in. So let's work on yourselves, get those things resolved in your nervous system, see a more global picture, and go on. It frees you into your potential of who you are. It's vitally important. Next one. Now, I'm well aware that we talked about some of these last week, but I think they're important enough to start again. God is the chaos and the order, the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen, the manifested and the yet unmanifested. Everything starts in energy before it becomes substance. Everything does. You can't come up with anything in this world that didn't start as energy before it became substance. Here's the problem with what I just said, and that is when you're a little kid and you're in the ego child's mind, and as an adult you're in the ego child's mind, when you're there, God isn't the chaos and the order. God's in the good times, the order, and it's not in the chaos. It's not there. But it is. It's everything. Well, if that's true, if there is a hidden order in chaos, which physicist David Bohm, that was his theory that he put forth, and I think it's absolutely true. There's hidden order in chaos. This is the only reason that we can go to new order, is that there's hidden order in chaos. You see, let's talk about that. Let's say you've just had a new baby, okay? And you bring it home and it cries all the time and it's absolute hell and nobody's getting any sleep in the house. But you're going to eventually get on a schedule, are you not? That's new order that came out of the chaos. Stars explode, chaos to order. You have a new puppy in the house, chaos to order. You've started a new job, chaos to order. You get downsized, chaos to order when you get a new job. Chaos to order. It's really important to know this is a creative universe where all things are possible. Now, I'm going through a lot of these really fast because this is where we stopped last week, and we're about to start new information, but it's really, you can't hear this enough. I'm sorry to say that because here I am doing it to you, but you can't hear it enough. We've got to get new thought in our minds past our old perceptions of things. We need to hang on to these things, kind of like new mantras to say to ourselves, right? To convince ourselves of something else. You've already got a momentum built up that has to do with the ego child's mind. Good for you. Okay, that helped you survive. Now, it's not about survival. It's about consciousness, isn't it? And it's about deepening you. It's about potential. Got to do something else now. Not just survive. You've already survived. That part's done. This is a creative universe. Chaos is one of your most creative states. You say, oh my God, how can that be? You know, that's just scary as hell. Well, it's because you're investing in the scary as hell business and not in the creativity of it. Chaos is creative. Within you, within a marriage, within a business, chaos is creative. But turn your energy to creativity. You know? I remember, let me see if I can recall this. I think this was on an old consumer show on the radio, if I'm not mistaken, because this happened many years ago. And I was listening, and there was a guy that had just been downsized, right, from his work. And he was very upset, and he called in to this radio show and said, oh my God, my life is over. And the talk show host, I was rather impressed with in this aspect. I didn't know who really he was, but in this aspect I was. This talk show host kept saying, well, are there other businesses that you can slide into that you did? Oh, no. And all he did was talk about how bad the economy was. By the way, this was 20 years ago. Huh, you should see it now. Now we'd have something to talk about. Maybe. Anyway, he said, no, he couldn't do that. Well, and so this talk show host said, well, what kind of talents do you have? Well, have you ever thought about this and that and the other? And every single time anything was mentioned, oh, I can't do that because of this. Oh, I can't do that. Without even investigating anything. And I thought, wow, that's a perfect example of what we're talking about right now, isn't it? He's just saying no to everything. He's not listening. Why call in, right? Okay, let's go on with the new information. When something seems to block you, you're in your own way. What? Yep, that's it. When something seems to block you, you're in your own way. It might be you think that somebody is sabotaging you. Well, you know, maybe that person is there because they're misunderstanding and you're supposed to be a grown-up and talk to them. Maybe you're just supposed to go in a different direction. You've got to make sure you're not avoiding and that this is worth working on. I'll give you an example of that. Some of you may have heard this story months ago, but I think this is a really good story. I had a woman who was in logistics. Now, that's a man's field, or it has been traditionally a man's field. And this was maybe 20 years ago, okay, when we were talking. And she was one of the rare women. She got a real big contract, and I don't remember whose idea it was, whether it was this company or whatever, but she was supposed to partner with a group, two men that she did not know, who did another aspect of this. Okay. This was huge. So she did her thing. I know this client well. She did it beautifully. They did their thing. Guess what happened? They didn't do it so well. The whole thing went south. They lost everything, lost the contracts, okay? Now, she heard through the grapevine that the head of this company was really bad-mouthing her and saying some pretty harsh things, and she came into her session saying, you know, I'm ruined. My reputation is ruined. I've got to find something else to do. I can't keep on. This is the most embarrassing thing that ever happened. And I said, okay, why don't we, she said, what do I do? And I said, well, why don't you write a note, first of all, buying the biggest fruit basket you can, or, you know, very nice basket, gift basket, and write a note to him thanking him for the lesson. And she just had the biggest child's mind reaction, which was, what? What do I get out of that? They'll always know that's the ego child's mind reaction. What do I get out of that? Wow. And I said, well, you may get nothing out of it, but it's a very gracious and kind thing to do, and I'll write the note for you, because she was still, you know, very much in the ego child's mind. I said, come on, let's take this dictation. You know, I'm kind of make it up off the top of my head, but it was something to the effect of, dear so-and-so, I want to thank you so much for the hardest lesson I've ever learned in my life. I will never forget it. And I will take these lessons forward with every new person that I'm going to work with, and I will never make any of these mistakes again. So I want to say again how much I appreciate everything that you've done for me. It was a hard lesson to learn. I'm very hurt by this whole thing, but we'll go forward. And thank you. It was something along those lines. Well, she saw, by the time we finished talking about this, she saw this was all true. This was all true. And she got to the point in her mind that it was not any kind of manipulation. I wouldn't let her leave that session if she was going to manipulate this guy. First of all, it wouldn't work. It would not have worked. It had to be sincere. So I worked on her until she was of that mindset. So she did. She sent this gift basket to him and this note to him. And by that afternoon of him receiving that, he called her and he hired her. And as far as I'm concerned, I think they're still working together. No is not no. Not necessarily, no. When it is, you must recognize it. It means go a different way. But, you know, we fail and we avoid looking at it, and we hide and we create an image on the top where we haven't failed. And for God's sake, let's be honest. And what was really interesting is when she talked to this man, he didn't want her taking those wonderful lessons that she learned and giving it to another company. He wanted the benefit of that, you see? How nice. How nice. A win-win all the way. When something seems to block you, you're in your own way. Now, you may be totally confused about how you're in the way and who's thwarting you and who's not and what you're doing to yourself and all that. By the way, that's the ego child's mind confusion. Confusion actually is an issue. It's a state of being you create. So you don't move, so you don't change, so you don't accept responsibility, and many, many other reasons that you might seek confusion. It keeps you waiting in a passive way. I say, if you are doing this work, don't accept it all. Confusion. Work through it. Work past it. Go on and find out everything you can. Look it all in the eye. not going to hurt you. It's going to give you your life. I say it's not going to hurt you. If you've got drama, if you've come from a dramatic family, now here's the thing. Sometimes drama is created very externally. Oh, it's so dramatic. Oh, I'm having such a crisis. Okay, and everybody knows people like that. But it's also, it can be kept inside. Wow, is that self-sabotaging when it's inside? Sometimes you can't even see what you're doing until you've worked on yourself. All right? But if you've got that kind of drama going on, you know, it's always the end of the world. And you've got to break down that drama. Drama belongs on the stage, on the screen, on the page, on the canvas. It does not belong in your life. If you came from a dramatic family, even if you said, oh, I didn't have a chance to even express myself in that family, everybody was so dramatic, I guarantee you, you're doing it on the inside. And you've got to confront that. Because many times we go to drama instead of action. And you remember, third part of your formula is desire plus knowingness that lives in expectation plus the action that you're propelled to take, either because you have been told to take it or you see something and you need to follow up on, equals the manifestations of your desires. There's the whole formula right there. You can't link anything like going back into drama, oh, I'm so bad, interfere with your doing what you need to do in a practical sense and moving forward with the energy of cooperation in God. There it is. Cooperate with the highest self. Drama's not part of that. Drama is something from the past that gets in the way. Okay. Next point. You will realize yet that nothing is what it seems. Nothing's what it seems. Nothing's what it seems. It's the most miraculous thing I've ever seen. And, you know, we see it on a tiny little level. We'll lose something and we wish we could find it, but we get distracted because, by gosh, you've got to find something else. And you find that, sure enough, the first object is right there. Nothing's what it seems. I know a woman who had a traffic accident, and all of a sudden they found that she had something much more serious. She would never have gone to the doctor for these little things. But she got help for it, you see. Nothing's what it seems. Even words are different. I use this as an example. The word praise is very different in the ego child's mind from the highest self mind. I think in the highest self mind, everything praises God. I think the pebble in the yard is praising God by it being the best pebble there is, doing its share, holding its share of what it's supposed to do. I think everything in its natural state beyond the issues praises God. When we're kids, we don't even understand what praise is. We use it sometimes to placate a fearful, fearsome God. Of God we fear is what I mean. Oh yeah, we'll praise. We'll praise it. All that dramatic music in church makes us feel, gets us in the mood to do that. But guys, you can see it's not something that necessarily sticks with you in the real world. And we're trying to say that it is your innate spiritual being, your spiritual energy in physical form, that needs the attention, because that's what sees you through every time. Things are different from the ego child's mind to the highest self. Nothing's what it seems. Take responsibility. Here's another word. In fact, all words have that duality to them, aren't they? I mean, don't they? You can enjoy a nice glass of wine with friends, and it can make you very sweet and convivial, and add to a wonderful dinner that is very tasteful. Or it can also, you can use it to be a drunk. There's that duality. Let's go back to the word responsibility. Children see responsibility as burdensome, as something that will get themselves in terrible trouble. It is something that is to be dragged around. It's not fun. It's a brownish gray. Not something life-enhancing. But in the higher self, responsibility is the absolute privilege and joy that in this moment, by your thinking and feeling and who you are, you're creating something. Isn't that wonderful? Let's make sure you're creating something wonderful there. And hold it there in your great wisdom and faith of who God is in you. Next point. You'll be happier too if you know your life is more than your biological birth and death. You'll never die. You just become less dense molecules. And this is also where I think our drama gets in the way. We're all so afraid of death. We're afraid of death not only for ourselves but for other people. We're afraid, okay? To the dying, and you might ask how I know this, it's just something that you are told. It's like passing from room to room. But not if you don't go with. Let's talk about that. So for years, I thought, oh my God, what's it like for these people that know they're going to die? Let's say they're on a plane and the plane's going to go down. How scary is that? What I was told was that we all have the choice to suppress our emotion or to get straight with emotion and feel, which is the healthier state. So many times the people that are on a plane that is going down are so terrified. It is the terror itself that opens an altered state so that they don't suffer as much or at all. You see, all of these things, the emotion that you're avoiding, must be assimilated in you because it's there to help. It's there to help have a better life. Science tells you, psychology tells you, you must talk about some of the things that are bothering you and get all these feelings felt and transcended and what do I want to say before transcended? Resolved and then transcended to have a better life. What happens if you suppress it? Well, you don't see anything. You don't go anywhere. And when something like that happens, that's really devastating, you don't go with. And we're supposed to go with, guys. Now, for those of us who have sat by our loved ones' beds and seen the breakdown of their bodies, we are dramatic. We are horribly dramatic. We, what do I want to say? Fictionalize whatever they're going through because they're just shedding the body. And we, who are so earthbound, are sitting here really intensely, creating the drama inside when maybe it isn't what it seems. Maybe it isn't. I've had animals my whole life. Dogs, cats. Oh, I'll adopt anything that comes into my yard. Right now we have raccoons. Once in a while, they haven't visited obviously today, otherwise the dog would be barking. We have a baby raccoon named Hermione. She's adorable. That comes and visits us every day. But I've noticed for years that dogs and cats have quite a different experience of life and death. They don't get dramatic about it. Time comes, they're going to go, and there's probably just nothing you can do to stop it. Not at all. They're just going to go. And I remember one cat in particular was too strong to die. And no, I can remember two cats like this, and they threw themselves around very dramatically. They started at the end of their life, within the last hour of their lives, running into walls. They were really trying to weaken themselves, hurt themselves enough so they could go. They were trying to free themselves from their bodies. I am horrified, as we all are, to see something like that. It's very dramatic, it's very cruel, it's very hurtful to us that it was. Thank you, Judy. God bless your sweet soul, both of you. Y'all are just so sweet, all of you. I'm so glad to be with you today. Don't you understand? Our perception is quite different from another's. It's just the way it is. Our perception is different. Okay. Next point. In my opinion, I didn't think pain's supposed to last, pain of any sort. You find, most of the time, you find your way out of it by moving through it. By understanding that it is not some big bad thing that is going to do you in. Now, I have to say this with qualifications, because what happens in my perception is we have a distortion in our energy field, in the spiritual body, an energetic body. It happens when we're in the womb. We have these things that distort a little bit. We come out into life and we are looking for things that explain these energy distortions, and this is how our energies emotionally are formed and our ideas mentally are formed that are maybe off the beam a little bit, right? Or a lot. And then if we don't listen and we avoid looking at all of those things and we just do not see, sometimes that comes into the physical body and we get ill, and sometimes quite ill. If you catch it early enough, dear hearts, in many cases, sometimes in the box with medical science, sometimes out of the box with alternative science, you have a different experience. You can probably work through it. But our idea of pain needs to be addressed, because pain is part of living, and it is often there to show us an imbalance or that something's wrong so we can address it. If we're avoiding it, denying it, neglecting ourselves, cutting off parts of us so we don't feel anything, that's going to be a problem, because all of this is here to help. You understand? I've often said that when I get on the other side, hopefully a long time from now, I'm going to wonder why. I'm going to ask Spirit, why in the world, and I think I already know the answer to this, why in the world, when we are most ill, do we need to sometimes find the answers to it when we don't feel good? You know what I think? I actually think that there's no better time than that to commit to living and honoring ourselves. I think it adds an energy that we might be missing in our lives in other ways. You know, it is my belief that going down more deeply into self just doesn't have to be that dramatic. I've always been somebody that said, let's work on ourselves now. Let's really work on ourselves now and get it all done before we have to get sick or anything else. Let's find the answers now. Next point. Do you know that nobody can steal from you? Or because you are an aspect of God, you're an endless support and source of supply and creativity. Oh, I have been stolen from, so yes, I have. And after each time that happened, I've been stolen from by the best of them, each time I said, can I do better than that? And the answer was absolutely I can. First of all, I'm always shocked that anybody would steal. I'm really shocked. That just isn't in my understanding why people would do that. But there are people that will do that. And I think that it's really important that we recognize not what do I want to say? It's not a force of evil. I don't happen to believe in the devil and demons and all that silly stuff. I really don't. I think that's all our fantasy and our fear. What I do believe is there are people that live in an absence of light. Sometimes real evil can be done by people that are in the absence of light. Sometimes they're just opportunists. Sometimes they're actual murderers and worse. So I believe in evil. I just don't believe in a force of evil. You can think whatever you would like. I just think that's too convenient when I think to believe in the devil and demons when I think we're doing it. I think it's us. I think the ego child's mind does a real good job of that without any external belief in external forces. Certainly you'll be hurt if you're ever stolen from, guys. But as soon as you can realize, wait a minute, I can do better. This might be here, so I'll do better. This might be here, so I'll change fields. This might be better, so I'll go deeper into what I've created. Maybe I should go where somebody else can't go. Because it's opening in me, you see. Important. Let's take this into the area of relationships. I don't think, we're writing our own scripts. And I hear constantly that people are dying from broken hearts. You hear these stories once in a while. Oh, very dramatically written, by the way. But guys, why would you choose that? When life and death are just parts of life. If you are here and they have gone, my heavens, what are you supposed to do with that energy now? What are you supposed to do? I think many times we're supposed to grow up, Many times we're supposed to say, what's opening in me? If you don't go with that death, nothing does open in you. I think what death does, death of our friends, is it opens our capacity to love on a deeper level than we've ever experienced. Because we either have got to shut it off, we've got to be bitter about it, or we have to love them enough to let them go. So if that's true, what are you going to do with that wonderful energy that's still here? That is you. What are you going to do with it? See, I think creativity is one of the most powerful things there is. I think creativity, rather than fantasy, takes us forward. I'd much rather you use your energy in a creative way, in a deepening of you and the wonderful talents, gifts, and abilities, knowledge that comes out of that to give the world, than to have you, do something else with it. Okay. Another point that I think really helps you live well and helps you understand is that fear is the opposite of love, not hate. The reason we hate is because we fear. You understand? So if we're going to talk about a bottom line of what we have available, fear. Fear is the opposite of love. We're either loving and unafraid, or we're fearful. Fear is the base of the egoic child's mind, and love is the base of the higher self. This is important because as we root out issues that perpetuate our fear, that we learn to be fearful of in our childhood, what happens is that energy lightens of fear, and more energy wakes up as love. And this is how we become a more spiritual being in physical form. I think of it as, you have 4 bodies: the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Spiritual being the energetic body, which is, by the way, all the bodies. That's why you live on after your physical death. And by working on yourself, what happens is we are freeing a lot of the mental, emotional, and sometimes physical issues. We're freeing the energy. So where does that energy go? Into the present moment and into your spiritual body. This is why you wake up spiritual. This is where the global ideas come from. This is where the deepening of self and those talents, latent talents, gifts, and abilities are. In this waked up, awakened being that you are. It's amazing. It's one of the most amazing journeys I've ever seen. Interestingly enough, it is all about you. All about you. And when you go on this journey to learn all about you, you find everybody else too. And one of the things that's going to wake up here is compassion. We can say we're compassionate when we just are kind of softies, but real compassion is when you awaken to yourself as the human being you are, with all the light and dark that we all have, and we're compassionate for ourselves, and we find that deep compassion for all others, because now we recognize that everybody's in the same boat. If you're in the energetic child's mind, if you're in that energy, we're all in the same boat. Everybody's afraid, you see, until they're not. One last point, and then we'll stop there. And we're going to go into self-sabotage next week. I think I've got some really good points on that, which I think is part of creating the life we want. We want to really see what we're doing and what kind of beliefs we need to root out. Dear hearts, you are love itself. That's all you are. Now, some of you are saying, oh yes, I know, I've got so much love. But I want you to realize there is an ego child's mind love that really is about wanting to be loved. And there's a state of being in the highest self that is love itself. That is love itself. And that's who you really are. Beyond all the pretense, beyond, all the things that we do to look good and to be more than we are and to pretend when we don't really believe any of that. Love is all you are. Be that. And I say, what of the person standing next to you? Suppose they don't, in your book, deserve love. Well, it isn't about them, is it? It's about you as love. Has nothing to do with anybody else in the world. Has to do with you. Has to do with you. Darlings, we're going to end right there. I love talking with you every week. Really, I do. Guys, we are... let's see, I think I will be here next week. It's the week after that I'm going to have to miss. Let me check. Yes, I will be here on the 17th of October. Wow, okay. So we'll talk about this. It's from an article that's, I think, really good on self-sabotage. Okay? That'll certainly get in the way of you creating the life you want. Guys, do remember that if you want this in more detail, The Life You Want, this book, The Life You Want, is available on my website, which is marthanovak.com, Novak, by the way. I hear from people that it is, thank you, Kat. And hey, Betty, oh, I'm so glad that you tuned in today. How sweet. And Kat, I'm just so glad to have all of you with me. Thank you so much. Guys, you remember that one of the things that people forget, even advanced people, is you creating your life. You're doing it. You're creating it. You're creating it. You're creating it in a great deal of conflict, though, because there's always a conflict until there isn't between the conscious and the subconscious minds. So that's what this show is about. Let's bring all this subconscious crapola to consciousness so you can challenge it in your life, get rid of it, and go on and have a happy, happy time, using all your talents and gifts and abilities. This is what the world's waiting for, by the way. And you must not be one of the ones that's waiting. All right, dear God, you who are all we are. Thank you, Judy. You who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much. We are thrilled to be here and offer to you the you that is all we are. What we can surrender today. We surrender some of these old ideas that are just no longer valid. These ideas of us, of you, of family, that is based on old assumptions and appearances that are old, like old sweaters that we still try to get into, that we have long since outgrown. We're now fully open to the new. Dear God, fill us with that kind of love for ourselves and for others. Take us deeper into ourselves, where our true selves lie, and our talents and our gifts and our abilities that we've never even had the courage to explore. Show us, dear God, who we are in you. We are so grateful for all of it, every single bit. And while we might have something in our lives right now that we are going to change and look forward to changing, we say, thank God, it's here because it shows us we created this. And it shows us we will create more. We do so now, dear God, in you, with all thanksgiving for the perfection of it all. We thank you so much, dear God. And we say this prayer in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love center guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to this show. We thank you, and so it is. Guys, I'm going to ask you, please, if you've enjoyed this show or any of the other ones that are all over the internet and YouTube and Blog Talk Radio and Facebook Live, please get the word out about our shows. Send them out, please, or tell people about this. We're really trying to expand our conscious community, as you know, and you're, believe it or not, you're our front line. We appreciate it more than you know. Thank you so much. You guys stay well and healthy out there, okay? And I'll see you next week on the 17th. God loves you through you now. You let that in. Bye-bye.